My name is Ethan Marlowe, and what I'm about to tell you isn't just a story. It's a wound that never really healed. One winter night, I learned just how far family betrayal can go. My own brother and his wife left our mother bleeding in the snow like she was disposable, and that moment lit a fire inside me I could never put out. Before I take you through it, drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from. I read them all, and your words remind me why I share these hard truths. Hit subscribe too. It keeps me pushing forward with stories like this. The call came at 12:15 a.m. I was drowning in paperwork in my tiny Pine Haven apartment, the TV mumbling an old detective drama while snow hammered the windows. The number on my phone was unfamiliar, and for a second I thought about letting it ring. Then a voice cut through the static. Deputy Harris, Bryer County Sheriff's Office. He said they'd found my mother outside the Trailside fuel stop in Fairview, barefoot, battered, and whispering only my name. It had been 6 years since she last spoke to me. 6 years later, she called me selfish for leaving the Rowan house to study law, accusing me of turning my back while she hung all her pride on my older brother, Caleb Rowan, the so-called golden child. I was the sensitive one, the troublemaker. That judgment clung to me like a brand, and now Harris was telling me she refused the hospital, insisting I'd know what to do. I didn't think so. I threw on my heaviest coat, grabbed a medical pouch, and started up my battered pickup truck. The storm swallowed the interstate, whiteouts twisting memory into every mile. Caleb shoving me down the stairs when I was 9, the snap of my arm against tile. Mom scolding me for making trouble. Him locking me out in the snow while she told me to stop exaggerating. My grip on the wheel only tightened. By 4:30 a.m., I skidded into the gas station lot. My headlights fell on her, curled beside a trash bin, hair tangled, lips split, purple swelling across her cheek. Her bare feet pressed against ice so hard I heard the crack of her teeth from yards away. Mom, the word caught in my throat. She looked at me like I was half imagined. I dropped to my knees, wrapping an emergency responder's blanket around her. I'm fine, she rasped. Just slipped. Just clumsy. But her eyes told another story, darting like cornered prey. Harris leaned against his cruiser, arms folded. She said Caleb did this. Then she pulled it back, claiming she made it up. You've seen the bruises. You know what's happening. I eased her into the truck, heater blasting, blanket tucked tight. For the first time in years, her eyes locked on mine, glassy, desperate. Don't let him steal it all, she whispered, then went silent, retreating behind the words. The fight wasn't hypothetical anymore. It was shivering beside me in the passenger seat, wrapped in bruises and fear. As I drove, one question cut through the storm louder than the wind. How do you make a mother admit the truth when the monster she's shielding is her own son? By dawn, the storm broke into a hushed gray. I checked us into the Pineview Motel, curtains yellowed, furnace clanking, carpet reeking of mildew. I laid her gently on the bed and worked by instinct, cleaning cuts, wrapping her wrist, recording bruises in my head like a lawyer building a case. She tried sipping from an instant noodle cup, but her hands shook so badly I had to steady it. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Her old prepaid cell phone blinked red, 1% battery. I plugged it into my charger, and while she lay curled under the blanket, I scrolled through the voicemails she hadn't erased. One voicemail stopped me cold. Caleb Rowan's voice, low and icy. You've shamed me, Mom. Keep this up, and next time nobody will find you. My chest burned as I saved the file. When I asked her, she only shook her head. You don't understand, Ethan. He tries. He just loses his temper. The words rolled off her tongue like a practiced script, the same old excuses she used when he shoved me, locked me out, broke my bones while she told me not to stir trouble. I remembered our last fight in Fairview, the kitchen with yellow curtains, her voice cutting like glass as she told me not to come back if I thought I was better than the family. That night she chose Caleb's charm, his future, his name over me. I left and swore I'd never return. Yet here I was, spooning soup into her trembling hands like none of it had happened. I pulled out my notepad and started drafting it like a case. Trailside fuel stop, the Rowan house, Mrs. Greenfield's testimony, hospital records, the regional title office, protective order, guardianship, digital files, everything mapped like evidence in court. She gripped the instant noodle cup, knuckles white. "Don't dig too deep," she whispered. "Don't make him angry." That wasn't fear, it was control. A cage she carried inside, and cages have locks. While she slept under the dim lamp, I searched her things. In her worn canvas wallet folded between receipts, I found a pocket journal entry. Silver Creek Holdings, property transfer, beside a reference number and a lawyer's name. Tucked next to it was a notary receipt. My breath caught. Proof of a transfer she couldn't have truly understood. A signature taken under pressure. Caleb didn't just want obedience. He wanted everything. I slid the papers into my pocket. The storm had covered Fairview in silence, but it left me a trail to follow. The Rowan house loomed smaller than memory, its siding worn brown, pitong, porch still holding the old rocking chair. From the street it played at being whole, but the windows glowed with a false yellow light that warmed nothing. Inside, disinfectant bit my nose. Photos lined the walls, Caleb in his football jersey, Mariah Rowan smiling at fundraising banquets, little Ivy Rowan with ribbons in her hair. Frame after frame, I searched, but not one included me. I knew where I had been, cut neatly out of group shots. One picture from spring 2001 had my corner sliced away. Proof of erasure was still proof. I photographed them all. In the storage cupboard, I found a box scrawled 2001, Ethan. Inside were scraps of my life, my diploma, a torn and taped university acceptance letter, a birthday card reading "Proud of you" with no signature. My history, boxed like junk, I cataloged every piece. In the kitchen, bleach lingered. I pulled a crumpled receipt from the drawer, my mother's signature under property transfer, Silver Creek Holdings. I snapped photos and uploaded them to a secure online drive. Insurance. Then I spotted it. A ceramic figurine tilted on a shelf. Behind it, wired against the wall, a disguised digital nanny cam pointed toward the counter. I slipped the card into my laptop. Grainy footage filled the screen. Caleb stood, face twisted in rage. My mother said something I couldn't hear. His hand struck. She crumpled, skull hitting the counter edge. Mariah entered, expression blank. She adjusted the camera, framing the scene before walking away. The timestamp, 8:57 p.m., the night of the storm. The evidence was undeniable. A voice broke the silence. "You just can't resist, can you?" I turned. Mariah leaned in the doorway, silk robe tied tight, coffee cup dangling like this was routine. Her tone carried amusement, but her eyes were sharp. "You vanish for years, leave her to us, and now you come charging in like a savior. It's pitiful." I tapped my phone to record, keeping calm. What's pitiful is pretending this is normal. That footage will hold up in court. No amount of bleach erases abuse. Her lips twisted into a crooked smile. "You think anyone's going to believe you? You're the one who walked away. Caleb built this family, not you." Mariah's words still echoed as I slid the memory card into my pocket, already synced to a secure online drive. My work inside the Rowan house was done. On his desk, among scattered contracts, one folder caught my eye, signed by the initials NP. My gut clenched. It had to be Nolan Pierce, the businessman neighbors whispered about. I noted it in my journal and stepped out, carrying more than evidence. They had cut me from photographs, hidden cameras in plain sight, erased me from history. But truth refuses to stay buried. Back at the Pineview Motel, I renamed the video. Marlowe Evidence. Multiple copies uploaded, scattered across drives. Then I sent Caleb a single still frame, his hand raised against her cheek. No caption, no threat, just proof. A declaration that I'd seen everything. The night dragged on. The furnace rattled like a dying engine. I heated soup, but my mother only sat on the bed, blanket drawn to her chin, eyes fixed on the floor. Fear pinned her in place. I opened my laptop and played the footage. Her hands flew to her mouth, a strangled cry escaping before she forced it down. "It didn't happen like that," she whispered, tears streaking her cheeks. I slipped. I imagined the rest. I knelt in front of her, steadying her hands. "You don't need excuses anymore. You're not alone. I'm here, and I'm not leaving again." Her shoulders quivered. For a fleeting second, she looked like the mother I remembered before the years of silence. Then her voice faltered. "He said if I refused to sign, he'd take Ivy. Said he'd send her somewhere I'd never find her. What choice did I have?" The words hit like a blade. This wasn't only about her safety. Ivy Rowan, my 8-year-old niece, was his bargaining chip. "He won't touch her," I promised. My anger burned, but I kept my voice steady. I dialed Dana Wells, a child protection advocate I trusted in Fairview, and laid it all out. Emergency guardianship, protective orders, steps to shield both my mother and Ivy. Dana's tone was firm. If I brought proof, the court would listen. For the first time in years, momentum shifted my way. Then my laptop flickered. Lines of code tore across the screen, and files vanished one by one. My notes, recordings, drafts, gone. Even the backups dissolved before my eyes. My pulse spiked. This wasn't a glitch. Someone had hacked me clean. Only Caleb had the reach and reason. He wasn't waiting for courtrooms. He was already inside my case, deleting it before it existed. The motel walls closed in. My mother sat motionless, soup untouched, her eyes glassy, like she'd already surrendered. I knew then I couldn't win this alone. There was one man who could tip the balance, Mason Boyd, an old ally from Pine Haven, a genius at finding cracks in any firewall. I pulled on my coat and whispered to her, "Rest. Tomorrow changes everything." Then I stepped into the hallway. Outside, the blizzard had gone quiet, but inside me, the storm only roared louder. The Rusty Spur Tavern reeked of stale smoke and whiskey. Neon signs buzzed, their glow fading into wood-paneled walls that remembered too many secrets. A faded Western ballad drifted from the jukebox, ignored by the patrons. Eyes flicked toward me, quick, suspicious glances. I kept my phone recording in my pocket and walked to the bar where Nolan Pierce sat with a glass of bourbon. He looked older, though swagger clung to him like a second skin. A crooked smile spread as I approached. "Well, if it isn't Prodigal. What brings you crawling back?" I ordered coffee, burnt ash in a mug, more prop than drink. "I want to talk about Silver Creek Holdings," I said flatly. His eyes narrowed, though his face barely moved. He swirled his glass, amber catching the dim light. "Careful, kid, you're stepping where you don't belong." "I know enough," I shot back. $220,000 vanished from my mother's account. Her signature was forged, and your name keeps circling the edges. Pierce chuckled, voice low and sharp. "You think you're the first Marlowe to dig into family business? Caleb has friends with long arms. They don't like being poked." He leaned close, whiskey thick on his breath. "Do yourself a favor. Walk away." I pressed the record harder in my pocket, forcing calm. "That's not happening." His jaw flexed. Maybe it was liquor, maybe intimidation, but his tongue slipped. "You think Caleb did this alone? I get my cut, 20% for making things disappear. Papers, signatures, problems like your mother. Everyone eats from the same plate." The confession landed like a hammer. My gut twisted, but my face stayed stone. Just then, Mason's voice crackled through my earpiece, brisk and clipped. Mason's voice crackled in my ear. "I traced the transfer, 220 grand, straight into Silver Creek Holdings, broken into smaller payouts. It's airtight financial abuse." Before I could answer, a man on the next bar stool leaned in. His cap shadowed his face, his whisper sharp. "You're being tailed. Eyes have been on you since the motel. Watch yourself." The warning froze me. I scanned the bar, every corner suddenly alive with threat. Slipping my phone into my pocket, I rose without touching the coffee. Outside, the night air cut like knives. My pickup truck sat under a flickering lamp, windshield fractured into spiderweb cracks. A scrap of paper fluttered under the wiper. 2 words in block print. Back off. I sat in the driver's seat, not trembling in my hand. They weren't subtle. They wanted me silenced. Instead, it steeled me. The County Justice Center loomed gray and cold, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. By the time we entered, reporters clustered outside, their cameras strobing like lightning. Inside, tension hung heavy, every cough magnified. My mother sat beside me, hands knotted white. When the judge entered, I rose. Years of legal work steadied my voice even as my pulse thundered. I laid out everything. The nanny cam footage of Caleb striking her, the voicemail where his voice threatened her life, notarized transfers, Mrs. Greenfield's statement, and the financial trail Mason had unearthed. Piece by piece, I stacked their cruelty in the open. Across the aisle, Caleb sat in an ash-gray suit, eyes burning, jaw locked behind a practiced calm. Mariah Rowan, polished in her designer gown, crossed her legs, gaze dismissive. When it was their turn, Caleb's tone was smooth, calculated. My brother has hated me for years. He's twisting our mother's confusion into lies. This is nothing but revenge. The judge's gaze shifted to my mother. Silence pressed down like a weight. I feared she would fold again, but then she stood, voice quivering yet strong. I'm finished being quiet. For years, I believed pain was love. I told myself I deserved it, but no more. My son hurt me. He stole from me. He cannot be allowed to keep doing it. The room froze. Then Mason's prepared audio echoed through the speakers. Caleb's venomous words. She's dead weight. If she doesn't survive, that's on her. Gasps tore through the gallery. Caleb's face blanched. Before the judge could respond, Mariah leaned close, her whisper caught by a live mic. I told you to erase the recording, didn't I? The gallery erupted. Reporters scribbled furiously, whispers swarming. The gavel slammed for silence. The ruling was swift. Temporary guardianship granted to me. Emergency restraining orders placed against Caleb and Mariah. A full investigation into Silver Creek Holdings was ordered. The words thundered final. Caleb's composure cracked, rage flickering across his hollow stare. Mariah's mask slipped into panic, eyes darting like trapped prey. My mother sagged in relief, tears sliding not from fear, but freedom. When we stepped out, microphones swarmed. I shielded her, but even I couldn't ignore the sound rising outside. The chant had begun. Freeze her out. It spread like fire, signs waving, voices united. Not in scorn, but solidarity. Our silence was broken, and strangers carried our fight. Days later, the blaze reached the world. Outside the glowing Western Herald studios, crowds swelled in the hundreds, chanting the phrase that had become a movement. Studio lights scorched hotter than any courtroom. Across from me sat Jenna Clark, calm, her notes untouched. The story was already alive without prompts. Ethan, she began, her voice cutting through the stillness. Take us back to that night. What did you see when you found your mother? Cameras zoomed tight. I inhaled. I drove 200 miles through a blizzard. When I found her, she was barefoot outside a gas station, face bruised, shaking from the cold. And it wasn't an accident. My brother and his wife put her there. They beat her and left her to freeze. My voice faltered, but didn't break. If no one had found her, she'd be gone. That isn't family. That's cruelty. The studio hushed. Even through the glass, I heard the stillness of the crowd outside. Jenna nodded, then cued the footage. On screen, my mother appeared, frail in a motel chair. Her voice wavered. I thought pain meant love. I believed if I endured it, he'd stay. I was wrong. A ripple of gasps followed. The silence afterward was heavier than applause. Then Mason's leak rolled across the broadcast, Caleb's voice, icy, damning. She's dead weight. If she doesn't survive, that's on her. The effect was instant. The gallery exploded, reporters hammering keyboards, cameras firing. the air charged with outrage. Outside, the crowd swelled louder, fists beating against the studio glass. The truth was no longer whispers. The country was hearing it raw. Then came the slip that sealed everything. Mariah Rowan's voice, caught earlier on a live mic. "I told you to erase the recording, didn't I?" Her own words condemned her. The room shook with fury. Outside, chants became a roar, the windows trembling under the force. And then, across the screen, a breaking headline scrolled, "Silver Creek Holdings, Caleb Rowan's empire, collapses. A multi-million contract canceled, investors fleeing, Nolan Pierce withdrawing his stake. A National Oversight Board investigation launched into fraud and elder exploitation." Even the anchor, Jenna Clark, faltered, brows arched in disbelief as the announcement rolled across the prompter. I sat frozen, pulse hammering, every nerve alight. The burden I'd carried alone had burst into daylight. When the broadcast cut, my phone buzzed. A new message glowed. "It's time for you to disappear." This wasn't a warning scribbled on scrap paper. This was intent. My fight had gone national, and now the danger reached me. By April, the thaw began. Snow gave way to mud and wet fields. With a deputy at my side and a court order in hand, I drove back to the Rowan house. From the outside, it still wore its mask of normalcy. Inside, it reeked of bleach and emptiness, like a stage stripped bare. The order was clear: permanent guardianship of my mother and of Ivy Rowan, along with restitution to cover what had been stolen. The family Caleb claimed to build now belonged to the people he had tried to crush. He was already inside, pacing, hair wild, suit wrinkled. His eyes locked on mine, burning. "You think this makes you the victor? You tore this family apart." I steadied my voice. "I didn't destroy anything. I'm rebuilding what you shattered." Then a smaller voice broke the silence. Ivy stood at the top of the stairs, gripping the banister. "I want to live with Uncle Ethan. I'm tired." The words dropped like stone. Caleb's face cracked, rage twisting into something desperate. He lunged toward her, but deputies pinned him back. He thrashed, shouting, "She's mine! You can't take her from me!" The front door burst open, more officers swarming in. The restraining order shattered the moment he came near them. They cuffed him, dragging him out as he howled. Mariah stood frozen, mascara streaking down her face, silencing her only reply. Then an officer's shout from the basement, a dusty external storage disk hidden beneath a loose board. Inside, contracts, forged transfers, lists of other elderly victims stripped just like my mother. It was no longer a family dispute. It was a criminal network with Caleb at its center. His fate was sealed, civil and criminal trials, years in prison. Mariah's reputation collapsed, her name fading into isolation. Nolan Pierce was removed from the council, facing charges of his own. The web unraveled completely. Our healing began in a rented house on a quiet street in Fairview. The walls were bare, the rooms modest, but sunlight poured freely. My mother planted daffodils in the yard, Ivy kneeling beside her, soil on their hands. "They bloom, even after the coldest winters," she whispered to her granddaughter. One evening, I found a letter Ford, lidded neatly on the kitchen table. "You never let me freeze twice. I chose wrong before. I see that now. Forgive me." I didn't need to reread it. The forgiveness was in her eyes when she looked at me, in the family photo from spring 2001 she'd restored above the mantel, this time with me in it. Messages poured in from strangers. "I was your mother once. Thank you for giving me a voice." Each one reminded me this battle had never been about one house, one family. It was about everyone silenced behind closed doors. One morning, I stood on the porch with a mug of coffee. The air was cool, but no longer cruel. Children walked to school, laughter floating across the street. In the yard, Ivy chased the first green shoots breaking through the thaw. My mother watched from the window, her face soft, lips curved in the faintest smile. The snow retreated, yellow petals rising stubborn and bright. I whispered to myself, Family is who stands with you in the storm. The storm had ended. What remained was the bloom of spring, fragile, fierce, proof that even what has been frozen can live again. When I look back, it still feels like a dream I can't fully wake from. The memory of that night returns again and again, the snow swallowing the highway, the silence pressing on my chest like a weight I couldn't shake. I see my mother outside the trailside fuel stop, barefoot in the storm, bruised, quivering against the cold. That image is carved into me forever. It was the moment I understood that silence can destroy just as completely as violence, and the price of looking away is always too high. For years I carried anger toward her. She had chosen Caleb Rowan, celebrated him while telling me I was too sensitive, too much trouble. She dismissed my pain, cut me out of the family frame, made me believe I didn't belong. I told myself I'd never return. Yet when the call came at 12:15 a.m., I drove through the storm. That drive wasn't only about rescuing her. It was about facing the boy still inside me, the one shoved downstairs, locked out in the snow, told to be quiet. That boy sat in the passenger seat the entire way. People ask if I regret exposing my brother, if I ever wish I'd left it alone. The truth? No. Family isn't blood if that blood poisons you. It isn't an obligation if the obligation is twisted into a chain. Family is the ones who stand with you when the storm closes in, the ones who hold your hands when you're frozen, who speak truth when lies feel safer. By that definition, my family is no longer the Rowans of old. My family is my mother, who found her courage. My family is Ivy Rowan, who spoke when silence was demanded. My family is every stranger who wrote to say, "I was your mother once," or "I know that pain." This story isn't just mine. It belongs to every person erased from a photograph, silenced in their own home, convinced that cruelty was love. I want you to hear me. You belong. Your story matters. Your voice matters. Even if it shakes, even if it comes late, even if it cracks, it still matters. Justice isn't clean. Healing isn't instant. My mother still carries regret. Ivy still wakes crying from nightmares, and I still battle the years of anger inside me. But now we move forward. We plant daffodils in the thawing earth. We let light fill rooms that once smelled only of bleach and fear. We are not perfect, but we are free. If you've stayed with me this far, take this truth with you. Silence is the abuser's sharpest weapon. Breaking it is where everything begins. I never wanted to share this story, reliving the cold, the bruises, the shame. None of it was easy, but if telling it gives even one person the strength to step into the light, then every word was worth it. So, if this reached you, let me know in the comments. Just write, listen, or share where you're watching from. That simple act reminds me, and others, that none of us are alone. And please subscribe to this channel. It might seem small, but your support helps these stories reach those who desperately need to hear they are not forgotten, not at fault, and not trapped forever. My name is Ethan Marlowe. My family tried to freeze my mother out of her life, but we survived, we rebuilt, we healed. And if we can, so can you. Thank you for being here, for turning our story of cruelty into one of courage. And remember this, even the frozen ground blooms when spring returns.